Kia rana koto katoa, kia ora, and welcome to Pasifika Wire. To kick off 2022, in this episode we are joined by Qiane Matata-Sipu, creator and founder of NUKU, a creative storytelling platform that amplifies Indigenous female changemakers, system shakers and leaders through audio podcasts, photography, videography, books, art and live events. Qiane is a seasoned journalist, photographer, editor and advocate. She talks about her journey, sharing the stories of Indigenous female influencers, taking NUKU on the road across the Motu, leadership, and what it means to tell our stories.
Kia ora, kia rana. My name is Qiane Matata-Sipu and I have whakapapa Māori to Te Waiohua Waikato Ngāpuhi in Pasifika and whakapapa Kukiairani to Arorangi in Rarotonga and Oneroa in Mangaia. I was born and raised in South Auckland, in Mangere and Ihumātao. Ihumātao is my proper kāinga here and where I currently live. And what am I? I'm a hautatu. I'm a storyteller, I suppose is the best way to say it. I spent the last 15 plus years working as a journalist, a photographer, communication specialist, activist for a little while, not working as, but I guess that's how people know and recognise me. And I'm married to a Tongan and we have a beautiful 4-year-old girl. So that's a little bit about who I am.
And continuing with that amazing journey, Qiane, can you talk to us about NUKU, your creation in 2019? How did it all begin?
Yeah, so, I mean, there's a bit of a story that goes with it. I officially launched NUKU in January 2018, but I started working on it in 2018, right. And the idea came to me in 2017. So right. What had happened was, for years I've worked in the media industry, telling our Māori and Pasifika stories in different ways. I was working for magazines, and then when I left full-time work, I started a business, which, is full-time work amplified. It's, 80 plus hours a week. And, so I'd always been telling our stories or being part of our stories in some form or another. And I had come to a point in my life where I was sort of figuring out what I was going to do next. And I floated this idea of starting a magazine with my nana, not with her, but floated the idea with her. And she and I were really close. She and my grandfather raised me. So my mum gifted me to my grandparents when I was younger. And my mum still played a really important role in my life, but I spent most of my life living with my grandparents. And so they were a really important hoe in my upbringing. And in 2016, my nan died really suddenly and really unexpectedly. And so all of these sort of dreams I'd had about what I was going to do next died with her because I couldn't see them happening. I was in such a low place in my life. It was the first time I'd really felt grief to that depth before. And it really shifted me and who I was and my being. At the same time, my husband and I had been together 14 years and we were 6 years into, a journey to try and have a baby and we're suffering from infertility. And so I felt I'd lost the sort of two ends of my whakapapa. Two ends of my heritage, and I started to question who I was as an Indigenous woman. Right. We think of Māori and Pasifika women are always stereotyped to be able to have 10 kids and, all that kind of stuff. But here I was, my husband's one of 11 boys, and we were struggling to have one child. And so I was going through this really dark period of, losing people that I loved, grieving for a baby I never had, questioning myself as an Indigenous woman, and then thinking about, what my own aspirations were in terms of my career pathway. When I miraculously fell pregnant about a year after my nan died, we were, told we were having a girl. And I started to think about all the things that I wanted to teach her and for her to know as she grew up. Yeah. What role models that I wanted to see, what kind of pūrākau and stories of our history and of our Indigenous knowledge that I want her to learn. And when I started thinking about that for her, I started thinking about that for myself. And for my peers and for people, for my mother, and actually what role models do we all have to look up to? And the media, as we all know, is often filled with negative stereotypes and deficit narratives and everything that kind of tells us we're not good enough. And I wanted to really change that. So, I mean, it's a bit of a long story, but it's a really personal story about how NUKU started, because it came from this place of darkness, and I liken it to our creation story in Māori mythology that, it comes from Te Kore Te Pō Ki Te Ao Marama, so the nothing, and then the darkness, and then the light. And so there's sort of like this story of being in a place of darkness and then the potential, and then coming into this world of light, which has really changed my world. So NUKU started, the whole kaupapa behind NUKU was to change the narrative for our future generations. And to do that, I wanted to profile 100 Kakas Indigenous women through audio podcasts, photography, video, and just recently a book.
Amazing to hear your journey so far. And I really like what you said about changing that narrative, because with your experience in media and mainstream media, is that changing? Publications like NUKU, are they changing that narrative?
I don't think, I definitely wouldn't give credit to myself or NUKU for being the reason things have changed. But
Sure.
What I have noticed is that in the last 5 years, there's been a significant shift.
Mm.
There's a significant shift in who's working in the media, the way the media are portraying Māori and Pacific stories, what inclusion looks like at the news desk and on our television screens. I celebrate people like Orini Kaipara, who, we've seen her make international headline news as being the first wahine mau moko to, the 6 p.m. news. And I just think, and it's taken this long in the history of television to have a woman wearing a moko kauai to front the news, that's such a big deal, and it's taken this long. And so I really do see so many initiatives led by incredible Māori and Pasifika journalists who are really encouraging the next generation to come through and who are challenging their workplaces to have more and better representation. And you look at, the likes of Stuff, I don't know if that was last year or the year before, where they took a really good look at how they reported on stories and how their reporting contributes to the wider perception of Māori and Pasifika people. And so
Right.
I have definitely seen a shift. It's still not enough. It's nowhere near enough. But I hope that NUKU has played some part in that wider ecosystem of fostering better, authentic stories that really showcase the diversity of who we are as people of the moana. I've really felt incredibly humbled that I've had the opportunity to meet these women so far. My team, when I talk to my team about our experiences with these wahine, we talk about how they've changed our lives. Because when you actually get to meet such a cross-section of women who bring with them it's just their story, I guess we go, oh, what have they done? Or where have they gone? And a lot of them have done the most incredible things and are still doing the most incredible things. But just hearing their story and relating to parts of their story and learning some of their life lessons and sharing in their visions and then celebrating their achievements has really helped us look at ourselves. And for me, I definitely know this kaupapa has healed me and really changed my life. And if that's happened for me, then it's obviously happened for at least one or two other people who listen to NUKU, who read the book. And so I feel really privileged that we have a platform like this, and I feel really humbled that we've been able to garner the following we've had, and I guess the beautiful feedback that we get from people. But I also feel really stressed because it's a really hard thing to carry.
Yeah.
And it's, the reality is people kind of go, oh, that's so great that you're getting acknowledged for these different things. And I'm like, yeah, but we work really hard to do that.
Yeah.
And NUKU is, as you say, with the platform that you have, it's a labour of love. It's a kaupapa that we make separate to having full-time jobs and, looking after our families and our children, but it's something that's so vital. And I think what it has highlighted for me is that there needs to be way more investment in these kinds of platforms, and sharing some of that futia across from mainstream media, because this is just as valid and just as important. But, especially for reaching different parts of our community.
Thanks for listening. Visit our website at www.pacificawire.com. We welcome you to like us on Facebook, LinkedIn, follow us on Twitter, and you can subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can listen to the full podcast on Spotify. Whaafatai, mai e manuia.